Okay, hey everyone. I think we're live now. At least we should be. Just gonna double check my mic, make sure that's all coming through okay. If you can hear me in the chat, just let me know. Probably gonna wait a few more minutes, just let a few more people filter in before we get to the juicy gossip. Just doing a little painting here for my own sake. My wife always fancied having a kind of classic colonial style painting for our shower curtain, the new place we're moving into. So I'm just sorting that out. Whilst we get warmed up and wait for more people to kind of filter in. So at the moment I'm just doing this little painting, mostly for me, using a reference of an old colonial painting. Just kind of using that as it's like a springboard, I suppose. This is a very, very rough stage of the painting, where it's just kind of blocking the colours and all that, and then get into all the details and such later. Because the last thing you ever want to do is start off a detailed painting with the details. That way, madness lies. Just mostly getting in the kind of cool shadows, working them in so that these nice fresh greens can really pop out, Otherwise they tend to get swallowed up. And trust me, you don't want that. Nobody wants that. It's going to be a chill Sunday. Chill Sunday with some chill cows here. do hope you're finding this as relaxing as I am. Nothing quite like working on the painting when you know it's just for you. Even though it's not just for me, really. It's for my missus as well. Especially as I've been working a lot of very dark subject matter recently. It's nice to work on something a little more light. Literally and figuratively. See if I can get the history brush to work on this one. Yeah. So right now, this front bit is looking quite dark and dingy, but it's going to be livened up with lots of flowers, I reckon. There's a way of making it a little bit more inviting. Even though this is going to be at the bottom, so I'm going to see an awful lot of it. But I think that's kind of important. It's me. There we go. Already starting to look a bit better. Okay, so we got some people now. And I suppose you're all wondering what this story is about. So, I graduated from Kingston Arts University in like 2011, 2010, I think. Can't honestly remember. But it's not the best time to do so because it was, everyone was still very much feeling the effects of the 2008 financial crash. In fact, a lot of the kind of long-term effects hadn't really come through yet. And things were like kind of dire, honestly. The mood was not great. And another thing to have to contend with was the bane of my existence at the time, which was a lot of businesses were starting to use this brand new term as a way of getting free labor called crowdsourcing. So, you have a project, and instead of hiring 2 people to do the job at an appropriate amount of money, instead you can get hundreds, maybe even thousands of people to help contribute to it, and they'll all work for free because everyone's just kind of happy to be there. And initially, the idea for this kind of philosophy was the idea that you would, you say if you're releasing an album, you release it for free for the first month or so, and then you'd make more money later on. You get this in Amanda Palmer's speech, "The Art of Asking." But what that translated into is a lot of projects going around, a lot of people being very, very fast and loose, but nobody wanting to actually pay for anything. So you get a lot of people saying like, "Oh yeah, we'd love for you to do this bit of animation for us. We're going to be kickstarting this documentary. There's no money in it though, but you will be getting a lot of exposure." And that whole, working for exposure thing, that was, very popular at the time. So kind of rough. Not gonna lie. I had a lot of people wanting to mess me around. I had some ladies who had wanted an animated opening credits to their film, and they asked me to come meet them out in central London. Meet them at a cafe. They did not buy me a coffee, so first warning sign then. Asked me to go to their studio and take a look at what the stuff they shot and what they were after. Show me some examples of other people's work. Spoke to them for about half an hour, and then I was like, okay, so all this is doable. All this is fine. What's the budget? And they kind of sheepishly turned to me and said, well, there kind of isn't one. We were kind of hoping you do this one for free, and then we have this other project coming down in about 3 or 4 months. Then you'll probably be paid for that one. So, yeah, that was what it was like at the time. So, I'm not earning a lot of money. I'm not, doing that well in that environment. And then, out of nowhere, I'd seen somebody at the CBBS, which is the UK's kind of education, entertainment center, I suppose, a little bit like PBS in America. They had essentially budget left over, and they needed to produce something for. They essentially needed to produce a history focused project for use in schools, but that would also be shown on TV. And they knew it was going to cover, I think, KS2, which is sort of age like 7 till like 11 or 12, I think. And there was no kind of hard, this is what it has to be. Like, they were saying, like, it could be puppets, it could be live action, it could be animation, a mix of the both. Anything that will get the job done. We have these periods of British history, which basically stretches from Neolithic times up to the signing of the Magna Carta, and we need an hour's worth of footage for it. And I'd already done some work with a company called Lion Television, and they'd done some work for Horrible Histories, which is another like British kids like book series and TV show and all sorts of stuff. So I had done some work for that because I could make my style at the time look like those books. And we pitched the show. Initially, like I did a boatload of work making an animated trailer, making it look really epic. And the idea was initially that there was going to be a live action presenter, and then I was going to have I was going to be in charge of animated sections, and there are even talks of doing stuff with green screen and stuff like that, where you'd have the presenter kind of walk through like a medieval town, and I would make a 3D model with the help of my brother, and me and the animation team would then have characters and stuff going around them, which I didn't know how to do at the time, but I was like, well, I'm sure I can wing it. And yeah, I was about 24 at the time. My dad had just died, and it was a real kind of turning point in my life of, what's going to happen? What am I going to do? I'm kind of living paycheck to paycheck here. But anyway, the show got greenlit after a very long time of faffing around and some shenanigans with contracts and paperwork essentially going missing. But it was all sorted out, and eventually, yeah, it was greenlit. It was ready to go. But then I found out last minute that even though it was planned that essentially I was only going to be in charge of the animation, and that, someone who wasn't 24 was going to just turn 25. They were going to handle directing the project as is, and I was just going to handle the animation sections. But then it turns out, actually, the budget doesn't actually include enough for live action. It's all going to be animation. So I kind of sleptwalked my way into directing the whole thing, and I'm in meetings with writers and with producers and with historical consultants and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking, yeah, I mean, I can direct a TV show. I mean, why not? And yeah, just like by complete accident, found myself in that situation. but it was a lot of hard work. It was an hour's worth of footage in less than 6 months, so about 5 months worth of work. I only had two full-time animators. I had my brother doing some 3D work, and then we had a few other people helping out, being like animation assistants and like filling in where they could. And yeah, I worked basically every evening, every weekend for about 5 months. It was unbelievably crazy. Like the kind of work drive. I try not to get close to that kind of craziness anymore, mostly for the sake of my health. And it's also, shouldn't really be expected of people, honestly. But, it was a lot of fun, and I got to make a lot of creative decisions, some of which came up later in history. So, show comes out, it's quite well received, like by kids. I had to fight a lot with the executive producers about the amount of action, or as they call it, violence, was in the show. But you know, kids love that stuff. They love a bit of action. They love seeing people's heads get chopped off. It's all part of the fun. It's history. It's violent, especially English history. So we had like a few shots in the very much the problem episode, which it became, which was the Roman one. We had some gladiators, and I had to be very careful to show that the gladiators are fighting, but we don't actually show any violence. The main rule was we weren't allowed to show any violence that a child could ostensibly copy in the playground, because otherwise then we get in trouble. But other than that, the main notes that I received were to make sure that every family that was featured wasn't, posh, wasn't overly wealthy. They wasn't, doing that American thing where like you only really show people of means, and if you do show people who are in poverty, it's a kind of, a kind of poverty which is negatable. Like they can just ignore it for a story. But anyway, like it was 2014, so the culture at the time, especially on Tumblr, which I was on a lot, was being very kind of aggressively progressive. You got people like I don't know her name now, but Aaron Diaz at the time was very outspoken, and then put their foot in it by saying some kind of silly things, being a little bit too edgy. But the idea of like the most of the media environment was very still quite conservative at the time. In queer people, trans people, people of color, still kind of very much struggling to have a a meaningful presence outside of the old mainstays. And I very much was in that kind of camp of, hey, if you can like do a bit of positive rep, then that's going to do a lot more help than to just keep the status quo, which is something which I still stick to, as a as one of my core values. So knowing that it would be difficult to have a non-white family pre-Roman Empire, and to a certain extent afterwards, I knew like, oh well, if I'm going to have uh, you know, a mixed race family, and then like the Roman Empire episode, that's the one to do it in, because there is evidence of you know, North and Sub-Saharan Africans being in the UK and even being in positions of power within the Roman army, because the Roman Empire way it worked was it expanded, but then instead of having this kind of strict hierarchy, very much absorbed the people that it overtook into itself. So instead of declaring a subjugated populace essentially persona non grata, it's like, right, well, now you are subjects of the Roman Empire. Your sons are going to serve in the Empire Legion, and because the Romans didn't really have a concept of race the same way we do now, only a context of culture. They didn't really have the same kind of. They did have their prejudices, but it just wasn't quite the same as what you get with in like more modern militaries. So it's like so like in the US, where it's like you can join the armed forces if you're Hispanic, but you won't be allowed into like special forces until relatively recently. And that's just the way it is. If you don't believe me, you can go look it up. So yeah, it was all checked by the producers and the historic. Essentially our guy who's there to like check everything, make sure that it's all historically accurate, because it is going to be a learning tool for kids. Everything was fine. Then finished the project. Collapsed. Can't remember the few months afterwards, because I was just so run down. And then later on, I think the year after it was all completed and sent in, or maybe in that summer, I honestly don't remember, I get an email saying, hey, so the lady who commissioned us, she says, so you're gonna submit it for the children's BAFTA, right? And neither me or Bill, the producer, really considered it, but especially as it costs £100 to submit, which is a small amount of money, but it's like enough to be like, well, are you really gonna piss it away? So we did, and didn't really think much of it until I got another email a few weeks later saying, hey, you have been nominated in the children's entertainment category. And frankly, I was over the fucking moon until I was talking about it with my family, and my brother says on the phone, like, oh, Benjamin, you're going to lose. And I asked him, why? Why am I going to lose? And he says, well, there's another. Have you seen what's in the other contestants of your film? I said no, because I didn't want to find out. And one of them was, I'm not going to say what it was. You can look it up if you really want to do your homework. But it was very much a Oscar baity kind of production, a harrowing, but at the same time very uplifting story about a girl with a very rare disease. Real tearjerker stuff. So I knew, I'm kind of fucked here. But what are you going to do? So yeah, we didn't win, but had a really fantastic night. Got to meet a few celebrities, which was fun. Got a few souvenirs. I still have the official certificate. Like it was, big poster. It's like thick card certificate from BAFTA saying, that you're still a nominee. It was mailed to me in a great big envelope that said "Do not bend." And what do you think happened? The idiot postman couldn't wait an extra second for me to get to my door, so he tries to shove it through the post box. So now I have this, BAFTA certificate I have framed with a great big dirty crease down the middle. uh, but anyway, like, that's all fun. And then, life goes on, do other stuff, nothing quite as big as that. And everyone kind of forgets about Story of Britain, really. It comes out, I tentatively going to be doing some other stuff with it, in 2017. But then in 2016, things kind of go a bit weird because it all kind of blows up when Paul Joseph Watson, or Prison Planet on Twitter, decided to put this out. See if I can put it on the screen. So people don't know who Paul Joseph Watson is. He works for InfoWars and was, reasonably well-known right-wing commentator until H-Bomber Guy kind of destroyed him in the public eye. He has this great squeaky voice, and yeah, so here we go. Like, thank God the BBC is portraying Roman Britain as ethnically diverse. I mean, who cares about historical accuracy, right? Imagine my shock. And yeah, it was very, very weird to see this guy, like, kind of a complete waste of space, but still quite famous for good or bad reasons, talk about my work. And then he got absolutely bodied by this guy, Mike Stutchby, basically just taking him to task. Apparently, Paul did make a video rebuttaling it, but his sources were all very, very low tier. And then also got backed up by the historian and presenter Mary Beard. And, it really kind of blew up when Stuckaby's response got retweeted by J.K. Rowling. Now, bear in mind, this 2017. This is before most people knew about Rowling's kind of dark secrets. So it was cool at the time. I'm just saying, it was cool at the time. Don't really want to have anything to do with her now. But anyway, so he kind of piles in, and then what's his name? Then Ian Miles Chong decides to chime in, and I think Glenn Beck did about 5 minutes on me. I think Alex Jones talked about me, or about the show anyway. Nobody ever bothered to contact me to ask, because the way that these kind of right-wing, alt-right Juds work is that they just they do no research. They just take the headline of an article they don't like the look at, and then they rant about it for as long as they can to try and get as much, juice, and then they just go on to the next thing. They all kind of assumed that the BBC, capital letters, had done this, when the fact is that BBC doesn't work the way they think it does. It's not a big factory of content. There are offices for the BBC. It does have a physical location, but those offices are mostly there for admin and for a few shooting stages. The way it mostly works is that the BBC wants a certain type of program they will commission it out to a production studio which actually makes the program. The studio will then possibly even subcontract areas of that contract out to people like me to actually make the stuff, to make the art, and then the BBC, shows it on TV or on the iPlayer. But there's no conspiracy. There's no big factory, grinding out woke content. It's just the individual choices of the people who make the art, who make the TV. Nobody. I didn't get any memos from the BBC or from Klaus Schwab or from anyone saying like, we've got to have a 50% non-white population shown in the show. Like, no, that's just rubbish. All design decisions were made by me, and then were corroborated by the experts. And yeah, so like you got a lot of terms like white genocide being thrown around as it was like a kind of that was kind of a boutique topic at the time. I think there had been some like murders in South Africa at the time, and a lot of people were trying to desperately correlate that into like a trend. And people were just getting themselves all worked up. And it's funny, like I assumed it was 2016 when this happened, but actually it was 2017. So, this is a year after Trump had gone in the White House. So you think these guys would be happy, but they're never happy. They always have to find something to be angry or furious about it, because again, like it's all a grift. It's all for money. It's all money and attention, and they love it. They love just wallowing in the filth. But it was funny, like at the time, because it was all over social media, all over like some parts of Facebook. It's quite funny actually. My now mother-in-law actually had heard of me before she had met me. So when my girlfriend at the time, my wife, mentioned like, "Oh yeah, he got famous because of this," she already knew the story. She already knew what was going on. And I did have a few friends ask like, "Hey, are you okay? Have you had like death threats or anything like that?" Like, no. It's incredibly easy to link the story of Britain to me. My name is in the credits. I brag about it all the time, especially at the time. But yeah, none of these guys bothered. None of them actually cared enough to find out. They just saw something that they could, make a little hay over, so they could get, all angry and, red-eyed about, and then, squeeze that for all it's worth, and then move on to the next thing. Like, as a celebrity said something silly, has somebody in a marketing department made an unusual choice. Anything you can virtue signal to as to your political preferences, so you can show that like, but like I'm purer than thou. But it was still weirdly amusing. It was really funny seeing this whole circus happen after something which I had done, but had no real intention for. I imagined when I was designing the characters, like maybe some Daily Mail readers will get their knickers in a twist over this, but that was about it. And people who read the Daily Mail are addicted to becoming angry and furious over the smallest thing, so I figured they're going to be doing that all the time anyway. But yeah, like no real drama came from it. It's just a fun story. Like it's a fun story to tell sometimes. It's also a fun story to tell to find out other people's opinions. So when I was working at Supermassive Games on the Quarry, I was telling this story and made some jokes about some of these alt-right chuds who were getting their knickers in a twist over this. And one guy who I was quite friendly with, I thought he was a cool dude. He went all quiet at the pub and didn't really want to speak to me from after that. I couldn't figure out why. And then he had sent out some. He had printed out some tickets to see a show, but sent them to the wrong printer. So he sent them to the printer in my part of the studio instead of his. And they were tickets to see like a live show, a live like presentation or whatever by Sargon, which I can't think of a more hellish 50 minutes than spending any amount of time with Carl Benjamin, either in an audience or up close. But that kind of like, oh, okay, right. He's just a right-wing conspiracy theorist. That's why he didn't want to talk to me after that. Okay, fair enough. To strike him off the Christmas card list. But yeah, that's it. That's basically the whole story. It sounds weird. It was weird, very strange to have some work which I thought was only ever going to be watched by school children. Get a good 15 minutes of fame online. But you never know what's gonna happen with this sort of stuff, and it's good fun. It's a fun story to tell, and as I said, I've been getting over surgery on my throat, and I haven't been to speak for a long time, about 6 weeks now. So it's been nice, having a little chat. I think I'm gonna leave it there. If people want more, more streams, more stories, I will do them. I will do more of them. I'll do some more stories like this, and more streams of the artwork at the same time. Who's this burnt toast? I feel honored to be one of the four who heard the whole story. Well, I'm hoping once the stream's done, it will be up on the YouTube channel, so people will be able to watch it back at their own pace. I hope you were entertained. I hope it was a good little romp. As I do this painting with some nice trees and some cows. But anyway, I think I'm going to leave it there for now. I've been streaming for about an hour or so. It's not so bad. But yeah, this was kind of fun. Might do this more often. But anyway, until next time,